Great. So let's go around. Welcome, everybody. And if you would introduce yourselves. And again, let's just share a little bit about how your ECFE program celebrates the end of the year. I'm Susan Walker, and I'm just celebrating life. So, and I'll turn it over to Cinnamon.
Hi, I'm Cinnamon Tyson. I'm from Sago Lakes, and we actually ended ECFE today. We have school readiness that'll go, yay! We'll have school readiness go one more week. And then, so last night we had a big Wheels event where all the community trucks come to our parking lot and the kids can climb through them and all that. And then next Thursday, to end officially, we will have a big ice cream social at the two different schools, because we have two different sites. So we have everybody come and have free ice cream. So that's kind of how we end our year. So and nothing really to report or talk about. So I have Sarah Hanson on my right.
Hello, I am in St. Louis County and Ely, and we have just wrapped up a series of picnics as our celebration for the end of the year. And we had pizza at all of them, and one of them had a pizza truck. So that was fun. And I would say one of the biggest hits was watermelon at these events. And I don't have a specific topic today. It's nice to be here and see everyone. And I will pass it on to Greta.
Hi, I'm Greta Nelson, and I'm in Cambridge Isani Schools. And we celebrate the end of the year in ECFE with the families. The last week we walked to a local park where we have a little potluck and bubbles and a nature hunt, that kind of a thing, kind of out of the ordinary. And that's next week for us. And then we walk back together. It's kind of a nice way to end it. As far as program, early childhood programs, we get together as a staff at the end, just have a little luncheon, and I don't hit high points and encouragements and different things like that as a staff. So that'll be after school readiness is over. So kind of bring your own chair, and then they usually provide like some sort of a Jimmy John's sandwich, and then we bring a drink or something like that. So yeah, I'm going to pass it on to Sarah Hardy.
Hi guys, Sarah Hardy, 196 Rosemont Apple Valley, Egan. Let's see, end of the year, we have 3 more weeks, and it's left up to everybody individual ECFE classes. Like, there isn't a program-wide like tradition or celebration kind of thing. And I am actually debating, so I still have 3 weeks. So I'm debating, like, well, with the short classes, my twos classes, which I really only am with the parents for like 40 minutes, we'll probably just do a go around of some sort, favorite summer activity or something you're looking forward to the summer or something like that. Right. And for my longer classes, I'm still tempted to like shove in like one less little bit of something curricular wise, because that's how I roll. I'm always trying to do that. Shove too much into spaces that don't have room for them. Anyway, so that's me. And I'm, as a staff, there is an end of year like celebration picnic kind of thing, sort of like you were describing, Greta. That's on a Monday, the last Monday after school. But that's not really, it's I attended last year, and it was very very loose. There's some acknowledgement of people who are leaving, and that's it. No like program or any facilitated conversation. It's a great idea, such a great idea. At Edina, though, I will add that there's always a end of the year celebration party at a local park that was not walkable from the ECFE spot. So it was just like a separate day and time that people could come with their families. And that was really lovely. And I find myself wondering, maybe 196 could do something like that. But that's the long and short of it, I guess, for me. And I will go to Nikki.
Oh, I'm Nikki in Robbinsdale, and I'm hearing the question differently now too, because I was thinking about like the big celebrations, and now Sarah, I'm thinking about the celebrations within the classrooms too. So I'll comment on both. We actually still have a couple weeks too, as well, like you're saying. Our classes conclude that week of June 1st, and then the preschool ends. I think our last staff day is June 8th. And so we've got a few weeks late yet, but I do at the end, I give the families on the smart board a list of all of the content and the topics that we've talked about. And we talk in small groups and in large groups and really reflect on the things that they'll continue that really resonated with them, or things that they've worked hard to implement. And so we do a lot of reflective things. I also give them a list of about maybe 20, 25 questions, and they can choose one or two that speak to them that they want to comment on, like sentence stems, like in this class, ... or as a result of this experience, ... But I'll give them a whole list of sentence stems to reflect on the group process. And we usually do a potluck. So those are usually, that's all of those things are involved in the end of the year and kind of group conclusion. But for our program, we do an end of the year party. There's a DJ, and it's in our backyard on the playground here at the New Hope Learning Center. And we get about 500 people. So it will be a big event. And last year we combined it with a Hennepin County tree canopy grant. So we were planting trees, and just lots of fun, just kind of party atmosphere, and lots of families will bring their picnic dinners and chairs as well. So that is how we usually conclude. And I will go to Michelle.
Hi, everybody. I'm in Independent School District 197, which is West St. Paul, Mendota Heights, and Eagan. And this year we are doing kind of a picnic too. We have two sites, and we're going to combine the sites, and they're going to meet, and we're going to have a bouncy house and lemonade and popcorn, and the preschool families are invited, as well as the ECFE and early learning families. And so it's a new thing for us. So it'll be really fun to see how this all plays out. And I think that's a great idea that you gave, Nikki, about the phrases, to have parents give their input on something they've learned from the class or a reflection. I've also done something similar where we kind of have reviewed some of the topics, and just to see if there's some questions that parents had they wanted to continue to elaborate on. At that, I like to kind of leave a little time for that at the end, just to kind of pull things all together also. But I love that idea. So I'm going to take that with me and use that next year. We have only 2 days left. We have kind of a wraparound Monday, Tuesday. So we had some of our last classes were this week, and then we have Monday, Tuesday next week to wrap up. Okay, I'm going to go to, let me see if there's someone else that hasn't gone yet. Oh yeah, how about Carissa, did you go yet?
Not yet. So this is our last week, except I have a makeup next Wednesday because I was sick way in the winter and they couldn't get a sub, so they canceled the class. So one more makeup to do, but we don't do a program wide ECFE or preschool really thing. So for our own classes, the early childhood teacher and I that I work with and I kind of planned, we do a friendship snack where everybody brings in a little thing and we put it in bowls and they get to go around. It's one of the table activities. They get to go around and scoop up friendship snack. And then we did a outside fly swatter painting. They were hand print shaped fly swatters. So she's the like smart one that comes up with these cute things, not me. But it was a high five to the end of or to a great year or something like that was her thing. Kids had a lot of fun with that, and it wasn't nearly as messy as I thought it would be. And then for parent time, I've done more formal surveys the last week or two, but this year I gave them a blank half sheet of paper and said, share what you've enjoyed and what challenges were and things we can change. And people have had lovely things to say all week. So last week is always like a nice ego boost, right? And then I call them my little people sheets that I inherited from a parent educator when I was a mom, and then I student taught with her. And I keep thinking I should update it, but I just don't have the heart to change it because it's what she gave me. But it's like the outline of a gingerbread man shape kind of thing. And then it's got favorite food, favorite toy, favorite book. And on the inside, it's got like something they know, something they do, something they say, and how they play. So I do those in the beginning, like one of our first weeks, and I take them back, I keep them, and then we do another one today or their last day, and then I give them a new one to fill out first, and then I give them the one from the fall back, and then we just talk about the growth they've seen over the year, whether it's something reflected on the Little People sheet or not. So, and families, I've been doing it enough that families will come now with a younger one and they're like, we're going to do the Little People, right? Because I have them for a big brother or sister and I want one for this kiddo. So that's always fun. Oh, I don't know. I'll choose Becca. I'm going to put you on the spot, Becca, even though you just got here because I know you haven't gone yet.
Are we just introducing ourselves?
And then sharing how you celebrate the end of the year. Program or class wide, I think either one.
Okay. We are having an early childhood end of year party at a park. There's a DJ, it's a dance party, pizza party, and they scheduled it on my last night of Thursday evening class. So, because ECFE is often forgotten about in the big picture of early childhood. So stuff gets scheduled when I have classes. But I posed it to my class as a choice, and all but one family really wanted to go to the party. So we had our last class last night, and we'll get to go to the party. So that's what we do in my classes. I generally just on the last week don't really have content, but we talk about more loosely what we're going to do over the summer. And all my classes except for infants, which is non-separating, they all have a little journal, and we will flip them over, turn them upside down so it's the back instead of the front, so they're not reading other people's journals, but we'll pass them around and people can write a note in everybody else's journal. They can include contact information if they want to. I encourage families to get together over the summer and stuff like that. So that's our end of year. Who hasn't gone? Or am I the last one? Oh, Kelly.
We don't have a program-wide end of year celebration. So for ours, it's a regular day pretty much. We usually do a potluck at the end if the parents want to. And yeah, we have a pretty informal conversation about what they're doing this summer. And my classes love to chat, so they enjoy just the time to just chat. Which actually brings me to my question. I felt it throughout the year, but it happened like so abruptly last week. I was letting them have some conversation time, and then I wanted to get to our topic, so they kind of took a breath, and so I jumped in with it, and then it hit the scale. I wanted to talk anymore. So I guess and then on their end of year reviews, they all said, we prefer the time when we just get to talk. So I struggle with balancing providing more information beyond just chatting, and also giving them what they need out of the program. If they do need some time to talk with other adults, and if they're bringing up good, topics that are about their kids and getting good advice, but it's one of my talkier classes, and so I'm like, okay, I'll just jump in with the topic, and it just hit the brakes, and then nobody wanted to talk anymore. So I'm like, oh, so that's, if we have a chance, I would love to pick some brains about that.
I'm tired.
Are you tired, Beth?
Thanks, Kelly. Well, I made a note, so, and I think all of us can relate to that. So we'll come back to that. Ellen, I think you might be the last person to share.
Hey everybody, I'm just about home, so I'll get rid of the car audio here shortly. We also do not do a big program-wide celebration. Actually, last night we just did our first building-wide carnival. It went awesome. It was a fundraiser. We raised $4,000. but it's going to be split between our daycare, our preschool, and ECFE. So that $4,000 is not just for us. But still, it's money that we didn't have before. So that's pretty exciting. But that was kind of our big hurrah, right? Preschool goes to the end of the school year. June 9th is our last day of school. Ugh, swear to God, we're like the latest school in the whole district or in the whole state that goes so late. But I am done next Friday. So we have 1 week to go. And in our classes, I'm like, I can't remember. I do a formal survey. Like I do a Google survey. This year, unfortunately, we got missed. Like you said, Becca, as we do get missed. Oh my God, St. Paul goes to June 14th. That's terrible. Oh, but you have to wait for the state fair to be over. So that's probably why you go so late. One thing that we got missed on this year is that we needed to do a survey for teacher growth and development. And we did not get any instruction on that. It went out to preschool, but we didn't get that. So I still need to do that. And we didn't really want to send out, hey, how are staff doing? And then send out an end of year survey. So we're putting that on top of our end of year survey. And our end of year survey has 2 questions. How has your child grown as a result of being in class? And how have you grown as a result of being in class? Mickey, I love your idea of like reflecting in class together, but I can't do that this year because what they probably would say in the survey, they would probably say in class. And if they feel like they want to be anonymous, then it would tie them to, so I'll be able to do that, but that's usually what I do. And then our last week is we just have a phenomenal list of places to go, things to do, free stuff, library, road trips, visiting pools, water parks, and we go through that. And every year, parents, I'm not going to ask for your input to see if it's on the list. I'm sure it's on the list. And every year, someone has found a little park or a little fun place to go. So my list is like 4 pages long of really cool things and places to go and things to do, both locally and regionally. So that's kind of what I do. And I'm not feeling it yet. Like usually by this point, I'm like, oh, I have 1 week of class left. And I don't know why I'm not like, almost done. So anyway, Carissa, will you please put in the chat your things, something I know, something I do, something I say. Will you put that in the chat, please? I love that. I'm gonna do that. Thank you. And I don't have any questions today.
Okay. Great. Well, thanks, everybody. I have a question, of course. So those of you who did the U of M program, maybe not you, Sarah, because I think you didn't get me. But anyway, I taught the evaluation course. So I hear about evaluation and I'm always curious in a very practical level about evaluation data. And after all those surveys and whatnot so on the one side, when surveys are collected, what actually happens with that data? Because a common question that parents will and should ask is, so why am I doing this? Like, what difference is this going to make? Like, does anybody actually read this stuff? And so I'm always curious what does happen to it and how is that processed and how does that inform program design? The other question I would have is about the qualitative piece. And again, those of you who know me, is that I like any evaluation is better than no evaluation. And that those qualitative questions that you ask and the reflective questions and things like that, that's evaluation, right? That's good data. And just putting it out there that if you ever wanted to take that a step further and needed any a baby consultation on how to analyze qualitative data in a way that can be useful to your program design, like I'm happy to help with that. So, but we won't talk about evaluation at some point unless you want to. But thank you all for that fabulous list of ideas and resources that I know a number of you too have put into the chat. Any reflections on the end of the year thing as you listen to people talk about their end of the year program celebrations? I got food personally. I was hearing like the importance of food at these things. But any reflections on the end of the year stuff that folks have shared?
One thought that I have is have the tissue box ready and all around the table, because our groups usually, when they have the opportunity to reflect, there's always just so much emotion with the connection and the growth and the change and the closure of the group process. I always say, have the tissue boxes ready. You're going to need them.
This year I off of Sarah Hardy, because she had talked about those your little booklets, remember, Sarah? And so I took those and used those this year. And now I'm gonna add Becca's little thing to it that I'm gonna, unfortunately, my family's already took them this week. They're gone and they're in their hands and they're in their homes now. But next time I'm gonna have them turn it over. I think that's a great idea, so that they can write in each other's books and use that for context or any other comments or encouragements that they have for each other. I think that's awesome. So I'm going to incorporate
Thank you, Greta. The whole journal book idea was Becca's, and I copied it entirely.
Oh,
so, yep.
I have been giving false credit, but I thought you did something similar at some point. No? Yes. Okay. I thought okay. Well, Becca, back at ya.
Such great ideas. Thanks, everybody. Yeah, to me, it's just always interesting to hear how different programs operate, and also just that idea too of when your programs are done. I have to say, as somebody that provided support and did research with the different school districts, kind of keeping up with how long programs would be going to be able to meet with people was always interesting. Anyway, well, if anybody has anything else, let's get to Kelly's question. This is not an unusual question at all, Kelly. I think we all have faced it. A lot of it has to do with momentum and about being attuned to our learners, and yet also having this little voice inside that is like, but we need to get on with the stuff, right? And there could be that one parent that is sitting there with their arms crossed, waiting for you to get back to the content and stop the talking, because what they came for was to talk about toilet training today, and they are off on whatever. So Kelly, would you like to rephrase just bring your question back out, and then the group can chime in with their wonderful experience?
Yeah, thank you. I figured it was definitely something that happened with everyone because we're dealing with human beings. So yeah, I usually like to try to give the class some time to just chat. I always ask them if they had anything specific they wanted to bring to the table. So I do open that up, and maybe that's my problem. I don't know. And so they talking. And then when I can get a breath in and push out the topic, or, state what I was hoping to discuss that day, sometimes it brings it to a screeching halt, and then people are just kind of giving one-word answers, and it just kills the conversation. So, ideas?
I'd have one idea, but I think it's something to use maybe next year. I'm not sure at the end of the school year. At the beginning, I talk about the web of conversation, and when we're doing guidelines, that I really encourage them to go from person to person to person to person before looking back to me, that I will insert things. And so if I feel like the web of conversation is getting shortened, like it's them looking to me and then them looking to me, because we've explained it and talked about it, I can comment and say, you guys, I want to make this web of conversation expand. So I'm going to just sit back a little bit. But they know what that means, and they know that at least 4 exchanges or something like that is something that I really like to see.
Thank you. I love that idea, specifically with people who kind of dominate the conversation too. That's great.
I found it really helpful both with parents who dominate and parents who rarely talk, like when you get both ends of the spectrum, to do more pair share, like just turn to your neighbor. And often that's how either groups of 2 or 3 will get conversations started. I'll pose a question, say, turn to your neighbor. And sometimes it takes them a sec to start talking. And I'll be like, have at it, like, it's your turn now. But then they almost always, regardless of class, get really into conversation. And that's always started with a question that has to do with the topic. So we're easing into content in that way. And then we'll come back to the large group and I'll ask if anyone wants to share. And because they've already talked about it some, they tend to feel more comfortable sharing, but also the people who tend to talk a lot have already had a chance to talk. So it kind of balances things out a little bit. So I try to do that towards the beginning of any class. And if I feel like we haven't done a lot of that parent sharing piece in a while, I just kind of change it up with, like, are we diving right into content right away? Or are we really spending some time with where things are at for families right now? So I kind of judge it by, like, hey, the last 3 weeks in a row, we've just gotten right into content, or the other way around. The last 3 weeks in a row, we've spent a lot of time talking about, like, individual stuff and where parents are at. We're going to spend some time really getting into content this week. And I might even just say it just like that, so that they're aware that, yep, there's a balance. We're trying to keep things so people's needs are getting met.
Thank you. Yeah, I love that. Just explicitly saying, you know, like, we've been chatting a lot. So let's kind of, because I do go over at the beginning of the year, one of our guidelines is respecting time, meaning that, you know, hopefully not to dominate the conversation, and also that people are there for different reasons. So that could go back to that too. So, and thank you for reminding me of pair share. I used it all the time as an elementary teacher, and I don't know, like, I just apparently lost my toolbox when I moved to adults.
Kelly, something that just to give you yourself some, I don't know if it's grace or whatever, but sometimes I feel like if I have a chatty group and I go into topic, they're quiet because they're listening and concentrating and they're thinking. So sometimes the silence isn't because they don't have something to share, it's that they're in the process of processing, where before it was conversation, and you know how it kind of just it goes back and forth and it's fast, and there's something qualitatively that changes, I think. And I have in the past gone, oh shoot, that didn't go well, and then I have to stop and think, no, someone just said that they were thinking. I'm like, oh, that's a good thing. They can stop and think a little bit. So yeah, so just a little grace there. Sometimes that's just, sometimes it just does feel awkward, but it is because they're thinking and they're wanting to create some, you know, a response or be processing. So yeah, just, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good reminder that it's going from a flow to kind of more of a structure. And yeah, maybe just like a transitional statement too, instead of, so today we're going to talk about, that might help it, you know, from screeching so much and kind of naturally flow. Thank you very much. I do have to leave. I have to pick up my other son at preschool. So thank you guys very much. If you keep talking about it, I'll watch the replay. So thanks guys. Do we know, are we going to go through the summer with the Zooms? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Great. Thanks, Kelly.
I was just going to add, she can watch it later, but I will acknowledge, like, oh my gosh, you guys, I just love how chatty you are. And I love you have a lot of things to say. And then I'm like, you guys should maybe get together, you know, like after class, if it's not the next one, you know, or, you know, you guys are welcome to come early and hang out in the lounge, you know. So I acknowledge it. I say how awesome it is. And then, you know, sometimes I think, like you said, Becca, encouraging them to get together over the summer. Some groups just do that because they've come with other kids. And I think some groups are like, oh, that's a really good idea. And you're just like, really? You guys didn't think about that? But I think just sometimes they don't think about it. So I always like to point out, like, gosh, you guys are awesome. But I know, I know we've been trying to get to this topic for a really long time. So.
What I was wondering, does anybody have either two things, both sort of relate to structure. One is the structure of like getting together, like beginning the class. And I know in the past we've talked about like joys and concerns and how that can take the entire day, right? That can take the entire session. And so that sort of introduction time and warming up and giving people a voice, right? And then, so do you have any kind of time structure of, we're going to do this for this amount of time, and then people know that we're going to move on to a topic? Or is there a particular phrase that, or sort of cue that you give, that we're easing from, you know, the general getting to know each other, talking stuff, to the topic of the day? So one is time structure, two is sort of word structure, something that you say and the parents know it, right? Or is it three? Is it just a very open, loose structure, and you're so attuned to your class that if there is some important topic that you just go with it and you sort of ignore the content? So I'm really curious. I think that's why I really like Kelly's question too. I think that is something that we often deal with.
I do, so I'll only do a time structure when it has been a week or two and we haven't gotten to a topic, because I've been doing the third thing and letting them flow. I have some really, for lack of a better word, mature parents in one of my groups. They are so insightful. They are so deep. They have such awesome conversations, and I let them go. But then if there's a week and I know they want to get to a topic, every week they know what the topic is because I've got it up. I've got my cartoon up. It's based on it. My word structure is at the beginning of class, before I let them do, I say, you know, gold star moments or terrible moments or whatever. I say, on the docket today, I've got temperament. What that looks like, how's it look like? Your kids might be different, blah, blah, blah. I give like a 10-second spiel. And then I say, but before we go to that, I want to check in and see if anybody has anything and they want to share. So they know right off the bat what the topic is. And what I think that does more often than not is say, I actually have a question about that. And I'm like, great, let's dive in. So do I think sometimes people get cut off because they had a question? Yeah. But also it gets us onto our topic. And then back to the time thing. If we've gone a week or two and we haven't gotten to a topic, I will say, I really want to dive into today's topic, and we will take the last 15 minutes of class to do any check-ins. But I don't do that very often. I will do it for a class where I have, right now I've got my tough dad. I have two of my toughest parents in the same class, and they like to talk about their older kids, and it is driving me insane. They are constantly talking about their middle schoolers, and I'm like, we can't talk about middle schoolers, guys. And they keep talking about middle schoolers. So this week I did say, I'm not opening it up to them because they'll just start talking about their middle schoolers. So I'm like, we're diving right in. And it was, we did sexuality this week, which we missed last week. So I feel like some classes you can't let them go too long with joys and concerns.
I had a class like that this semester, Ellen, and one of the moms, after I flipped it, she got to me and she goes, that was awesome. And she's the one who always talks. Yes, we could get there. And she was just like, you got to do that more. And I'm like, and you just giggle inside because you have all this internal dialogue going on, trying to decide, do you or don't you? Is it going to be okay? And you're trying to regard her need for conversation. Oh my gosh. And I said, thank you for acknowledging that the topic is awesome. Like, oh, anyway, sorry. I just, it's an art again. So that's what I would say to Susan. It's so much an art, and the science of a time clock, a timed piece, is great when the art isn't working very well for whatever reason, right? It's nice to have a structure piece, but I love getting to the place where I can move with the group as it sees. And that's a great segue into what we're going to talk about today. That kind of I love when I can say that. But yeah, that's me.
And I like, kind of like Ellen, I put a topic out there and it doesn't matter. We start and it veers 90 degrees this way, or it veers 90 degrees that way. So it never really stays on topic. And then I have like side conversations going on. So I'm like, oh, okay. If I try to do a time thing, I'm like, all right, guys, let's get back on topic. You know, if you see those parents that are like Susan said, like, oh my gosh, why are we not on topic? And why are we not doing this? And we talked about this and whatever. So it's kind of like, you kind of have to watch your group too. But I noticed I went from a big oval table of 13 moms down to 3 different tables, and the conversations were just different. And yes, sometimes they got off a topic, but I felt like if I gave them a topic and they were separated, and now again, this was towards the end of the year, so they all knew each other, but it felt like they stayed more on topic and they stayed more focused in that small group versus the big group, because the big group, they kind of just deviated to whatever they wanted to talk about, you know? And I've had those middle school parents too. And so it's like, nope, we're talking about your 3-year-old, sorry. So yeah, that's kind of what we do.
I'll just add a couple things to what I'm hearing. I do a lot of what I've been hearing about, you have some talking weeks and then you need to get into content. But even if I'm doing content, I like to at least get a sense of where people are in the group before we dive in. And so it might be doing like, show me your thumbs up, where you are today. And if I get a lot of something like this, then I know maybe we need to dive a little bit different direction, or, on a scale of 1 to 10 and hold up your fingers. There's a lot of different ways, or even instead of like a joy and concern or rose and thorn, doing like share one word or one sentence, so that we can still have some kind of acknowledgement of how they are, and having them feel like they're a member and have a place of belonging in the group. So, yeah.
Well, and Susan, this kind of goes back to what you were asking, like, what do you do with the data? And there's a reason when we do surveys, we don't ask the question, what would you like to see added to class? Because parents want to add things that are not developmentally appropriate. They want a letter of the week. No, we're not doing that. You know what I mean? So sometimes if you open it up, then they're adding in things that you're just not going to do. So that's why we don't ask, like, what would make this better? Because oftentimes not having topics. Yeah, we're not doing that. Right. So I've thought about on my just like my guidelines for discussion. So like, has anybody done like expectations for this class? Like, we'll have time to talk freely, and we'll also have time for topics that are chosen. Does anyone have any like this posted anywhere, like, so that parents know, like, yes, we are going to talk about things that are, that just dawned on me, like, could we add that to kind of remind them, like, yes, we're wanting you to be in charge of your learning, but at the same time, there are things like we need to get to. I'm just, am I making sense? Anything like that? I don't know if anybody's done that.
I think that's a great idea, because we give our kids expectations, we should probably give our parents some too.
Mm-hmm.
So they know what to expect. Mm-hmm.
It's so tricky because we go with the flow so often, right? And it might be, oh, we're going to do 3 weeks of temperament here, and I'm going to maybe not get to easy snacks. I don't know. That's what gets hard. I don't. Mm-hmm. Do you have like an interest finder that you use at the beginning that you could post up or something like that, that posts like general topics that you usually get to in a semester? Or
yeah, I'll put up what we're gonna do, but I don't really do interest topics anymore because I know what they want to talk about. You know what I mean? And then like as the groups get better and they mesh and they gel, then like, we really want to talk about this. But sometimes they don't know what they don't know. And you can't talk about, discipline until you've talked about the brain, and you can't talk about the brain and temper tantrums until you've talked about parent regulation, so like, there's all those things. I'm just thinking not so much about like the schedule, but more like in this class, we'll have time to share, but we'll also have, the prescribed needs versus the
Yeah, there was like a word cloud I made a year or
Yeah.
two ago, because somebody gave us all these words of what they want from the class. Like, is this a place they want to learn?
yeah.
Is this a place where we're going to have develop friendships? Is it about communication? Is it about conversation? Is it about, and it was a whole, where was that list? Is that ringing a bell for anybody? Because I remember I took what they voted on and then made a word cloud for each class and posted it up there. And I said, remember, this group has said, and then made the bigger words, the ones that are voted for most, and say,
I think
really
it was-
fun with this, but we
I
also.
think it was Sarah. I think it was Sarah Fritch and Big Lake, and I think I have it.
That could be it.
Mhm.
Yeah, is that kind of what you're referring to? Or is that something you
think-
just from that?
I think I just want parents to know, like, it can't be a free for all.
Yeah.
There has to be some structure. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think most of the time they get that. It was just occurring to me, like you said, Cinnamon, we post expectations for kids and we have our parent discussion time. But I mean, for some groups, would it just be nice for them to know, like, sometimes we're going to talk about what I want to talk about,
Mhm.
you know?
Do you have a first slide that has like, today we're gonna introductions or an icebreaker, and then we're gonna have announcements, and then we're gonna move into joys and concerns, and then the topic of the day is this? Do you have one slide that?
No, I'm not that formal.
I
I'm
do,
not
I
like
do have that, and then I move through them
Yeah.
fast or slow, depending on.
Sure.
But
I just have a cartoon and then I go into like a couple slides. So I could do that, I suppose. I could do that.
you could get rid of icebreaker, you could get rid of introductions, you could
I
just.
just have, I just have two things to add. I like so much. I love so much of what's being said, and I recognize it in my own practice. And I would add two things on the topic survey. What I've started doing is saying, I'm gonna cover these, you know, and the list. And it's not always like exactly the sequence, Ellen. Like sometimes it's like random stuff that like, so in 196, our classes are quarters. So we have a fall roster, a winter roster, and a spring roster. So we don't, it's constantly different, it feels like constantly a different group of parents, but it's the same class all year, the same title of the class. So I teach parents in threes all year, but I have different rosters for each term. So like if I didn't cover a topic that is fundamental, but not developmental, like in the sequence that you're talking about, Ellen, and the fall, I will be sure and cover it another of the 2 semesters, right? For example, like parents of sexuality educators, grief, like some of those topics that you can kind of drop in. And I will say, like, we're talking about it. Is there anything else you want me to know about what you want to learn, or, you know, whatever? And that's kind of the nature of my topics finder these days, because I'm done with like the list of 20 or 40 possible topics, like choose, you know, it's like, it's just too much work on the word cloud. I'm like, it's like, so I'm sure it's validating. It's like, I'm not going to tally all that. I'm going to drive it. And also topics emerge in the group, like all of you have said. So like we have to talk about something next week that I probably wasn't going to take another week with, but we have to. So we're not going to get to something else that I wanted to do, but that's all right. You know, well, you all do that. The other thing I want to say about this is that if there are, especially in my short classes where I only have 40 minutes, that's with my parents of twos. If we've gone to like 20 minutes in on joys and concerns, I will be watching the clock and I will make a decision at that point to say, I'm going to press this into topic. I'm leading us here now because maybe last week we didn't even get there, or I know the topic it feels important for whatever reason to me or to them or whatever. And sometimes I say, you guys, you know what, I'm noticing the time. This is a really fruitful conversation. There's so much coming through here that I'm just noticing, and let's just keep going. So Susie, what were you going to say? You know, like, so I will say, I'm still in charge of this. I'm the boss of what you're doing, but okay, we're going to do this or that, so that it feels intentional. I think just that's like a little bit authoritative leadership, right, of the classroom.
That's what
I
I'm
do.
talking. That's exactly what I'm saying. Like, yeah, I love that, Sarah, like being intentional, like, this is great. We're going to keep going. So I'm in charge. I'm driving it. Yeah. That's kind of what I'm saying. Like, just that they know that you're not just there as like a, whatever, talk about whatever, but this is great. This is good conversation. Carry on, keep going. We'll push this topic to next week. So
kind of like you could just be a substitute for someone who's supposed to be teaching the class. If you could just do that work that way, is that kind of, that's a picture I have in my head.
Well,
And
and let me also advocate for you guys in that I would heartily recommend that you, that's why I wrote down Sarah's words of authoritative leadership in the classroom. I would really recommend that you have those words or that sort of sense of how you do what you do, because frankly, in the non-parent ed world, people don't understand, right? They don't get what parenting education is, first of all. And you know, a lot of people will say, well, isn't it just like a support group, right? And sometimes if we get into like a lot of the open topic stuff, people could argue, isn't this just a support group, right? And this is a bunch of, you know, like couldn't they just meet at Starbucks and have that conversation over coffee, right? But no, I mean, you know, that it's not that at all. And that artistry in your head, that content knowledge you have in your head, that weaving people around to the topics. I mean, this is your experience and your expertise to be 3 steps ahead in your understanding of where that conversation is going and where you want that conversation to go because of the learning target, because of, you know, and you know, as I listen to all this, I'm thinking, oh, what about the curriculum design course? You know, like that they all like went through. And so this is the artistry that you all have as experienced educators, is that you can integrate that flow of the curriculum design, of the teaching methods, of the evaluation, all of those things, right? And still be accomplished. I would just encourage you to have some of that professional language in your head or in your mouth to be able to say when a school district person who doesn't want to vote for ECFE or somebody from the outside who doesn't quite get it, you know, that you can talk about your professionalism, that you can say, it may not look like other traditional education to you, but the way that I practice authoritative leadership in this classroom helps parents get to whatever, right? So I'll just throw that out there to help you advocate for yourselves.
One thought too that I wanted to add, that in addition to the expectations that I lay out for my parents in the parenting room, within the parenting conversation and within expectations at the very beginning when we're doing group norms, I'm also laying out the very clear expectations around the parent-child interaction time and explaining the purpose and the roles, because over the years I've seen various classrooms where parents don't quite get it. And they really need to have it explained. And so we have an integrated observation question that I put up in the children's classroom and I put it up in the parenting room. And I'm explaining very clearly that when they come in, these are questions that they can think about that will relate to the conversation, the topic that we're going to be discussing in the parenting room. And in addition, it gives them a lot of ways to observe. So we spend time at the beginning of our school year on observation and perspective taking as well. And I let them know this is the foundation of ECFE. This is the foundation for our parent-child relationship, is that we're going to gain so much through observation in the different ways that we do that and the perspective taking that it allows us. And on top of that, the significance and belonging that it creates for our children when they know that we are sitting in observation of them. So I don't want us to forget that of course the expectations we lay out for the parenting group are super important, but I think we are also laying that foundation for the whole experience that they have with both components.
I think that's excellent, Nikki. And the other thing I would add, I've added something to the chat, which Ellen, you said your 2 questions. That's the 3rd question 196 asks, is about the relationship. So just an FYI. And then, because it aligns with the ECFE, you know, the 3-legged stool. If I plan temperament and the joys and concerns are about sleep, I will sometimes say, or often say, I think like, okay, so I was planning temperament today and we ended up talking about sleep. Like I will name that it was, the topic is the box is checked. And right, just another like sort of leadership thing. Like you guys really needed to talk about, right, toileting. Like I don't ever have to plan to talk about toileting in my TWOS classes because it just comes up. So I just cover it when it comes up. Does that make sense?
Sarah, I have a question. Would you integrate temperament into that question about toilet training?
Oh, for sure,
Yeah.
for sure, right? Um, for sure. It just depends. Like it depends. It depends how much leadership they need on the conversation, and if there's time to. Ideally, I would do temperament first, and then we would talk about toileting. But you know, if they are like, oh my God, when is my kid going to use the toilet? Then we talk about that.
Life doesn't happen in boxes, does it, Sarah? It's a little more messy than that.
Those are the words to handle, to say to people who question about, I handle unpredictability, the lack of predictability beautifully. What a fabulous conversation. Nikki had raised a question about the omnibus bill, and I do want to bring that in. I also included a link because I thought that it would be useful to maybe give people time if they don't have like present knowledge or it hasn't been discussed in their districts, to also talk about it and learn about it a little more over the week, and then we can talk about it next week. Yeah, Nikki, do you want to raise that? We have a few minutes left.
Well, the omnibus bill passed, that's being signed, and
Right.
that's, I think, what, $2.2 billion. But the labor bill has passed out of committee and they're expecting to pass it. And I believe that that will provide the same, and I'm reading off of one of the updates that I received, providing the same continuing contract and due process protections for early childhood and adult education teachers as K-12 teachers, which should lead to all of the things, right? Increased compensation and more professional respect for the teachers of all of our district's youngest learners. So I think, we've been talking for a long time about parity and how do we get everyone across the state on their master teacher contract. And I wonder if the labor bill does this. So that's what I'm wondering, if that's coming down the pike. If the labor bill, it approved out of conference committee on Friday night, and that should have a large impact, I think, across the state. But that's what I'm curious about, and what you're hearing in your districts, if that's what that does for you.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'm thinking a couple of the programs are done, but doesn't mean you're not in contact with professionals in your area to have those conversations. Has anybody heard anything about the MDE positions? Nikki? Oh.
I was going to say, and it's super exciting, not about the MDE positions, but about the MDE, the new kind of the sorting hat, right? The counterpart to Help Me Grow. Now, we're funneling kids through Help Me Grow so that they can get to the appropriate school districts for early intervention. Next year starts the new pilot with the sister, kind of the counterpart to navigating early childhood, not early intervention or special ed. And that, I believe, will first go to Head Start, then go to districts for early childhood needs, right? Are people hearing about that this week? So that's I think that's a huge thing across statewide as well, that, we've got this great system, and now we're going to have the sister component to it for early childhood, not early intervention.
It kind of pairs well with Help Me Connect on top of it. Nikki, I would even say the three of them, Help Me Grow, Help Me Connect, and then this new one together, all are very helpful for families with young children. I'm very interested and curious. I'm not sure about excited yet because I don't know exactly what it's going to require, but I am very curious and interested to see.
I would love to spend the hour next Friday talking about this. I don't know anything about any of the details of that.
I just posted a piece to an email that I had received. The Early Learning Services Division at the MDE is excited to announce a new coordinated child intake system, the Minnesota Early Learning, that is set to launch this fall. This automated online application will be the sister system to Help Me Grow, and will support families with children interested in general early education settings. That summarizes it well, but it's a long letter that I received.
Does this mean then that maybe MDE will start paying attention to us a little bit more? Because seriously, if they're gonna have something rolling through that connects families to early childhood programmings, then by golly, it darn well better be us. Sorry, I agree with you. What for just Greta, just knowing a little bit about this, I don't know. I'm pretty disappointed in MDE. And I don't care that that's recorded. I think it's ridiculous that they've just left us high and dry and whatever. So, okay, I guess we'll see. They can impress me. So right now I'm not impressed at all.
Yeah, I think this would be a great conversation for next week. And I'm wondering, is there anybody we could invite to talk about it more that you would
It's
suggest?
just, I just forwarded you, Susan, the email, one of the emails that I was connected to on this, and it was Avisha Whiteman, who
Okay.
was the person who, or Whitman, Right. That she was the one that was coordinating the longitudinal data system.
Mhm.
And I forwarded that to you in case you want to share it out with the Perfect Connections group. But I think she could speak to it. That's who the email came from.
Okay. All right. Well, I can ask if she has the availability to join us, and I'll put it out there to the, full group that, yes, I will be in town. To see if they would be willing to join the group and answer any questions. And then in the meantime, I would really encourage you, even if they're not talking about it in your districts, and I completely understand how spotty sometimes these conversations can be, is that you at least, can read enough about it to see if there may be some impact or what the impact would be in your ECFE program, to come across, to definitely have questions, for whoever we bring. Or if you have additional suggestions, I don't know, Mike or anybody else who could speak to this. I don't know if I'm going to see, like if there anybody from Menafee could speak to it. But yeah, it's always interesting. Oh, and Sarah won't be present. Okay.
And is there a way that we can request to go longer? Because I feel like our conversations get really good. It's even in parent group, our conversations get really good and stop, bam, we're done,
Yeah.
So it would be really
Well, and
good
as
to,
much as I like doing
plug
it,
out 2 hours.
and as much as I like doing like an intro, like to kind of break the ice, it sometimes like in a parent group takes 25 to 30 minutes. So
Yeah.
maybe we just like skip introductions and be
Yeah.
like, sorry, everybody, we're not going to introduce anybody because we want to spend the entire time on the topic. So
Yeah, I completely hear that. Now, today, I will say that I thought there were a lot of really great ideas about end of the year celebration and, things like that. So I always try to tie in something, with the intros, but I hear you totally. Yeah, so and Chris and Cinnamon, I'm just thinking of respect for people's time and all of that. All that, ironically, the kinds of things we talked about today with transitions and structures and being attuned to your group and all of that. So, have a warm May, when spring weather will get to us at some point, I'm sure. So have a fabulous week, everyone. And we will see you next week, hopefully. Yeah. All right. Bye.